At Christmas, my daughter-in-law looked me dead in the eyes and said, "It's better we leave you behind this year. No complications." And my son, my only child, stood there and said nothing. So I stayed silent too. I booked a flight. I spent the holidays alone. A week later, I posted a few quiet photos online, and that's when it happened. 48 missed calls. Now they want to talk. Let me tell you what happened. Please subscribe and comment where you're watching from. My name is James, 63 years old, retired electrician, widowed 8 years this March. I keep things simple these days. I wake up early, take care of the house, feed my neighbor's dog when she works late, and I keep a small garden even though I never eat half the things I grow. But nothing matters more to me than family. At least, it used to feel that way. For as long as I can remember, Christmas was sacred. I don't mean in the religious sense. I'm not much of a churchgoer these days. But in the way that the house always smelled like cinnamon, and you could hear wrapping paper crinkle from the next room while someone swore quietly trying to tape it down. That kind of sacred. And ever since my wife passed, those Christmases with my son Derek and his wife Marissa gave me something to hold on to. Something that reminded me I still belonged. But this year, something was off. I had reached out mid-November, like always, asking what time I should arrive, what I could bring, whether they wanted me to stay the night or just come for the day. No reply. A few days passed, then a week. Finally, Marissa called. Not Derek, Marissa. That was the first red flag. Her voice was distant, like she was reciting from a script. "James," she started, her tone already making my stomach tighten. "We talked about it. And, well, this year, we think it's better we leave you behind. Just to keep things simple. No complications." I didn't respond right away. I was waiting, hoping I'd hear Derek chime in from the background, telling her to stop, to take it back, to tell me it was a joke. But I heard nothing, not even his breathing. So I said, "Is Derek there?" A beat of silence. Then she said, "He is." And still, not a word from my son, the boy I raised, the man who once cried in my arms when his mother died and said he didn't know how to live without her. That boy was silent now. And in that moment, I understood something I'd been refusing to accept for years. I had been slowly, deliberately edged out of their lives. "I see," I said quietly. I don't even remember hanging up. I just remember sitting there, holding the phone long after the call ended, as if it still owed me an explanation. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, remembering how Marissa once called me too intense when I tried to give parenting advice. How Derek started checking with her before answering even simple questions. How holidays became more about what worked for them and less about tradition. And now this. I booked a flight the next morning. No fanfare. No plans. Just a trip to a small town in Colorado where nobody knew me, where it snowed enough to make the world feel quiet again. I packed one suitcase, grabbed my coat, and left a note with the neighbor in case anyone needed me. Not that I expected they would. I didn't post anything online. Not at first. I wasn't trying to be dramatic. I just wanted peace. But a week later, sitting by a frost-covered window with a warm drink in my hand and nobody to explain myself to, I took a photo. Just a quiet little picture of the snow falling outside the cabin window, and my hand holding a cup of hot cider. No captions, no pointed remarks. Just an image. But something about it said everything. And so I posted it. Then another, the next day. Me walking through a trail of evergreens, the sun low and gold behind the branches. Then one more, my dinner on Christmas Eve, steak, roasted potatoes, a bottle of red wine I'd been saving for no reason until now. No hashtags, no bitterness. But the message was there for anyone who knew how to read it. I didn't need their invitation to make peace with my holiday. I turned my phone off that night. Slept better than I had in weeks. When I turned it back on the next morning, the screen nearly froze from the notifications. 48 missed calls. Derek, Marissa, even her mother. Dozens of texts. "Why would you post that? We didn't mean it that way. Can you please call us back?" And in that moment, I didn't feel sad, or guilty, or confused. I felt powerful. Because for the first time in years, they were the ones left wondering. And I wasn't rushing to explain a damn thing. The first call I listened to was from Derek. His voice was flat, clipped, like someone forced him to call. "Dad, hey. I saw your post. Can you call me when you get this?" That was it. No apology. No explanation. Just a weak breadcrumb tossed in my direction. I didn't call him back. Instead, I sat on the little porch of the cabin and watched the snow fall like it had a purpose, quiet but firm, like it was drawing boundaries over the land. I let it cover the world while my thoughts sank deeper than the drifts. I thought about the last real Christmas I spent with Derek and Marissa. How Marissa spent more time posing for Instagram than sitting with us at dinner. How Derek let her boss everyone around under the guise of making things easier. How I washed dishes alone while they drank wine and scrolled their phones. I remembered her subtle jabs. James, maybe don't give him candy after 8. Or we don't do Santa. It's kind of outdated, you know? Every correction, every rolled eye, every reshaping of tradition was like being erased in slow motion. So no, I wasn't in a rush to pick up the phone. Instead, I posted another photo. Just me standing beside a small tree I bought from a roadside vendor in town, decorated with gold ribbon and a single string of lights. The caption read, "Sometimes the quietest holidays bring the loudest clarity." That one hit a nerve. Within an hour, I had DMs from people I hadn't heard from in years. An old friend of my late wife wrote, "You deserve better. Some people forget the hands that raised them." A cousin messaged, "What happened? I thought you were with Derek this year." And then came Marissa's text, "Can you please not make this public? We didn't exclude you. It was just a different kind of holiday this year. Things got complicated." Complicated. That word again. Funny how people only call it complicated when they're the ones causing the hurt. I didn't reply. I wasn't doing this by their script anymore. I had spent years shrinking myself to stay easy to include. They wanted a holiday with no complications. That's what they got. My absence was the cleanest line they'd ever drawn. But they didn't expect it to look so lonely. They didn't expect people to start asking questions. And they sure didn't expect me to start living like I didn't need them. 2 days after Christmas, I walked into a local diner for breakfast and took another photo. Just pancakes and coffee, with a little "Happy Holidays" napkin in the corner. The caption was simple. "Peace tastes better than approval." That one spread fast. And then came her voicemail. Marissa's voice cracked halfway through it, frustration barely hidden beneath a thin layer of guilt. "James, I don't know what you're trying to do, but this isn't fair. You make it look like we abandoned you. People are calling me asking why you weren't with us. We needed space this year, okay? That doesn't mean you're not part of the family." And then came the line that made my blood run cold. "We didn't think you'd take it this personally." As if being cut out of Christmas like spoiled leftovers was something I should have shrugged off. I stared at my phone for a long time after that. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I knew exactly what not to say. They had always counted on my silence. My understanding. My ability to make excuses for them so the illusion of family unity could stay intact. But silence is funny like that. It builds. It collects interest. And when you finally break it, even with a single photo, it speaks louder than any words you could have screamed. I didn't answer their calls. I didn't delete the posts. I didn't explain myself. Instead, I booked the cabin for New Year's. Then I made a dinner reservation for one. Then I bought a red sweater, bright, defiant, warm. And I wrote one more caption, under a picture of me sitting by the fireplace, drink in hand, smile small but real. They asked for a holiday without complications. So I gave them one. Happy New Year. It was January 3rd when Derek finally called with more than a few syllables to offer. I let it ring twice before I answered. Not because I wanted to be petty, but because for once, I wasn't the one holding my breath. "Hey, Dad," he said, like nothing happened. Like we were just catching up. "Been trying to reach you." I let the silence stretch between us. "Look," he continued, his voice tight, rehearsed. "I saw your posts. A lot of people did. You made it look like we abandoned you or something." I almost laughed. That's what he was worried about? The optics? "So you didn't?" I asked calmly. He hesitated. "No. I mean, we didn't mean it that way. Marissa just thought this year would be simpler if it was just us and the kids. No pressure, no travel. You know how it gets." I stared out the window of the cabin. The snow had started to melt, and a bit of green peeked through at the edge of the yard. It reminded me that even the coldest seasons end eventually. "Did she think it would be simpler?" I asked slowly. Or did you think it would be easier to let her make that call and avoid the conflict? He didn't respond. Because there's a difference, I said, between forgetting to invite someone and making a decision not to. One is an accident. The other is a message. He sighed into the phone. Dad, you're making this into something it's not. You always do this. You overreact, and then you go radio silent until someone reaches out. I sat up straight. There it was. The spin. Somehow, my silence, the one they handed me, was now my fault. I didn't go silent, Derek. I said, my voice firm but steady. You did. When your wife told me not to come for Christmas, you stood there. You said nothing. That silence told me everything I needed to know. He exhaled again, sharper this time. You have no idea what it's like trying to juggle everything. Marissa's family expects things too. We have kids now. It's not always about you. That was the moment I realized just how deeply Marissa's version of the story had soaked into him. He wasn't talking to his father. He was defending a narrative. One that painted me as the complication, the weight dragging down their perfect little holiday. I thought of all the times I'd picked up the slack so he could work extra hours. The years I helped cover daycare when they were strapped. The birthday parties I helped organize because Marissa said she was too overwhelmed. None of it mattered now. Because when it came time to choose between gratitude and convenience, convenience won. You're right, I said. It's not always about me. That's why I stopped trying to make it about us. He went quiet. I didn't post those pictures to start a war, Derek, I continued. I posted them because I was proud of myself, for the first time in a long time. I made something good out of being left behind. And if people saw that and started asking questions, that's not on me. He muttered something I couldn't quite hear. It sounded like, you made us look bad. I let that hang in the air. You did that yourselves? I said. I just stopped covering it up. I didn't hang up on him. I let him sit with it, just like I had to sit with his silence on that phone call weeks earlier. And for once, I didn't chase after understanding. I let him be the one unsure of where things stood. After we hung up, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel like I'd won anything. I felt clear. That night, I sat by the fire again, wrapped in the same red sweater, and opened a message from my old friend Henry. He and I used to work side by side wiring houses when we were still young enough to believe hard work guaranteed loyalty. His message read, Saw your pictures. You looked peaceful. That kind of peace only comes when you stop chasing people who don't look back. And that was it, really. I had spent years looking back, waiting for the warmth I gave out to be returned. But this time, I wasn't walking toward their table anymore. I'd built my own. Smaller, quieter, but built on respect. And I wasn't setting a place for them until they learned how to knock. The invitation came through text, 3 days after that call with Derek. From Marissa, of course. Can we have a sit down? Just to clear the air. Come by the house Sunday around 2. No apology. No warmth. Just a summons, polite on the surface, but layered with that same passive-aggressive tone she always used when she wanted something to look like compromise, but feel like control. I stared at the screen for a while before I typed a simple, sure. I didn't go there expecting redemption. I went for clarity. I wanted to see it in their eyes, see if there was even a flicker of ownership, or if this was just another attempt to paint over the cracks in their perfect portrait. The house was too clean when I arrived. Not warm clean. Sterile clean. Like it had been staged. There were cookies, store-bought, perfectly arranged. Coffee I hadn't asked for. Even Marissa's smile looked rehearsed. Derek opened the door, mumbled hey, and disappeared into the living room like it wasn't his idea to have me there. Marissa motioned for me to sit. I took the armchair instead of the couch. I wanted the space. So, she said, clasping her hands in that tight little grip she used whenever she was trying to manage a situation. We just wanted to talk. Clear up any misunderstandings. I didn't reply. I just looked at her. I wasn't going to help her out with the wording. She continued. We never meant to hurt you, James. We just needed a quiet Christmas. Less pressure. That's all. I nodded slowly. By removing me from it entirely? Her eyes flickered. That's not how we saw it. It was about boundaries. There it was. The word of the decade. And you set those boundaries by uninviting me from the one thing I've looked forward to since your wedding? I turned slightly toward Derek. You had the chance to say something. You didn't. He looked up for the first time. I didn't want to cause a fight. And now you're shocked people think you abandoned me? My voice was calm, but sharp enough to draw blood. Because that's what it was. You left me out like I was some leftover you didn't know what to do with. Marissa jumped in. That's not fair. No, Marissa, what's not fair is being told by someone who married into this family that I'm a complication. That your solution to less stress is to cut out the man who raised the one you're married to. Her face tightened. I have every right to decide what works for my family. You do? I agreed, nodding. And I have every right to decide when I'm done begging to be seen as part of it. Derek looked stunned, not by what I said, but that I was actually saying it. He wasn't used to this version of me, the one who stopped apologizing for being alive. Dad, we didn't want things to get to this point, he started. Then you should have spoken when it mattered, I said, cutting him off. You watched it happen. You watched me shrink year after year to fit into whatever version of family Marissa approved of. And every time I bit my tongue, you called it keeping the peace. But peace without respect is just silence in disguise. I stood up. I didn't post those pictures to shame anyone. I posted them because for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Free of trying to meet expectations I was never told. Free of performing for a seat at a table where my presence felt optional. Marissa scoffed. So what? You're cutting us off now? No, I said quietly. I'm just done chasing a family that only sees me as baggage when the camera isn't rolling. I walked toward the door. Derek followed. Dad, wait. Please. What do you want from me? I turned to face him. I wanted you to see me. I wanted you to say something when she said I wasn't invited. I wanted one moment where you remembered who I was before you became everything she needed. He looked like he might cry, but I was past the point where his tears would soften anything in me. I love you, Derek. But love without boundaries is just captivity. And I'm not living there anymore. I opened the door. And if your kids ask where Grandpa went, tell them the truth. Tell them I left when I finally realized I wasn't really welcome. And with that, I walked out. Not with anger. Not with bitterness. With relief. The thing about silence is that when it finally breaks, people lean in to listen. I didn't post anything after the meeting. I didn't need to. Truth has a way of crawling out on its own when people start whispering. And Marissa was never built for whispers she couldn't control. By the following weekend, the photo of me by the fire. Red sweater, wine glass. The caption, they asked for a holiday without complications. So I gave them one. Had started circling outside my usual friend list. A few relatives reshared it. A couple of old co-workers commented things like, damn, that says everything without saying it. Some families don't deserve the ones who show up every year. And then, the real blow, someone tagged me in a post on Facebook. It was Marissa's cousin. One of the only ones in that family who ever treated me like a human being. She'd written, not everyone who posts pretty Christmas photos had a clean conscience this year. Some of us know the full story. Marissa replied in the comments, defensive and tight-lipped, saying, everyone's entitled to their version of events. But that wasn't damage control. That was leak control. The image she'd spent years curating. Of the perfect little modern family with just the right blend of charm and independence was starting to crack. People were asking why James hadn't been there. Why he looked more at peace and solitude than he ever did at their table. I didn't say a word. Not online. Not in texts. Not even when Derek messaged me a rambling apology that reeked of pressure rather than reflection. Hey, can you maybe make a post or something saying we're okay? Marissa's getting all this heat, and it's not helping anything. You've made your point. Made my point. Like this was some kind of performance? Like I had staged an entire emotional exile for the sake of a viral moment? No, what I had done was simply stop hiding their choices for them. And that, apparently, was worse than any confrontation. That week, I ran into an old friend at the grocery store. A woman named Teresa. We used to be in the same church group back when Derek was still in grade school. She walked up, squeezed my arm gently, and said, I saw your Christmas pictures. I always knew you were too kind to speak up, but I'm glad you finally did. I smiled. I didn't say anything. She tilted her head. Exactly. That's when it hit me. The power wasn't in the post. It was in the absence. People didn't react because I attacked anyone. They reacted because I wasn't there. And in a world where appearances rule everything, absence is the loudest rebellion. But not everyone saw it that way. That Saturday, Marissa's mother called me. I hadn't heard from her in over a year. "James," she said sharply, skipping any pleasantries. "I don't know what kind of games you're playing, but it's affecting the kids. Do you really want to damage your relationship with your grandsons over a misunderstanding?" Oh, there it was again, misunderstanding. I took a breath. I didn't walk away from them. I was removed from their lives. Subtly, strategically, one holiday at a time. She huffed. "You're being dramatic." "No," I said. "I'm being honest. And if that's uncomfortable for everyone else, maybe it should be." I hung up before she could respond. I didn't know anyone the labor of explaining what it feels like to be erased piece by piece, smile by smile, until your presence feels like a burden people tolerate for the sake of family optics. The next morning, I woke up to find that Marissa had deleted all her Christmas posts. All of them. No more matching pajamas. No more cocoa. No more table spreads. As if removing the pictures could also remove the growing stain. But I didn't delete mine. Instead, I posted something new. A photo of my garden. The snow had melted enough to see the roots pushing through again. The caption read, "Funny how growth starts once the frost begins to fade." The comments flooded in. This one hit me hard. "Respect to the ones who chose peace over performative love. You're inspiring a lot more people than you know." And still, I didn't respond to Derek's texts. Not the ones that pleaded. Not the ones that guilt. Not even the ones that asked how long I was going to stay mad. Because I wasn't mad. I was done. And nothing terrifies people more than the moment the person they once had on a leash learns to walk away without looking back. The second week of January, I got an invitation, handwritten, left at my door. It was from my neighbor across the street, Nadine. Her family was having a small winter dinner. "Nothing fancy," she wrote. "Just food and people who want to be around each other." She underlined "want" twice. That dinner turned out to be the warmest table I'd sat at in years. There were no matching outfits. No curated photos for the internet. Just food that didn't come from a catalog, and kids who climbed into my lap without being told to. They asked me if I had grandkids. I smiled and said, "I used to," before quickly adding, "They're still around. I'm just not invited anymore." Nadine looked at me across the table and nodded, like she knew exactly what that meant. After dinner, I stayed to help clean up. No one asked me to. No one expected me to. And that made it feel like home. I walked back to my house that night with a casserole dish in one hand and the kind of ache in my chest that wasn't painful. It was just full. Like something had finally made room to settle. I didn't hear from Derek again until early February. He sent a long email. I read it once. Then I read it again. It said all the right things. How he missed me. How the holidays weren't the same. How he realized too late that silence is still a choice. And his choice had cost him more than he expected. It was full of regret, but not responsibility. Not once did he say, "I let it happen." He said, "I wish we could go back. But I don't." Because going back would mean shrinking again. It would mean waiting for permission to matter. It would mean excusing silence again and again, just to stay close to people who only know how to show up when the world's watching. Instead, I wrote back simply, "When you're ready to be a son again, not a middleman, I'll still be here. But I'm not waiting on the porch anymore." That was the last time I heard from him. And I was okay, because something had shifted in me. This wasn't about revenge anymore, not really. This was about liberation. The kind that comes quietly, slowly, like morning light creeping across a floor you used to pace in the dark. I started volunteering at a local community center, reading to kids who hung on to every word. I taught one of the teenagers how to use a drill. I gave another kid her first hammer and watched her build a crooked but proud little birdhouse. One afternoon, Nadine's son asked me, "Mr. James, how come you're always helping everybody?" I thought for a second, then said, "Because someone helped me once. And it made me feel like I mattered." He nodded like that made perfect sense, then ran off. That night, I posted one final photo. It was me standing beside the crooked birdhouse, smiling under the weight of something that finally felt real. The caption read, "Not all family is chosen, but the ones who stay, they always are." I didn't post it to stir anything. I posted it because I meant it. And this time, I didn't care who saw it. Have you ever felt like a complication in your own family? Like your presence was something to be managed, not celebrated? James' story is a reminder that silence can be both a wound and a weapon, and sometimes the most powerful revenge is choosing peace over performance. If this hit home, drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about the cost of being left behind and the strength it takes to stop chasing people who only miss you when others start asking questions.